Hello everyone, welcome back to Introduction to Prose. In the last class we have studied about 18th century prose and today we are moving on to Victorian prose. What do you understand by the term Victorian? This is to refer to the period in the history during which England was ruled by Queen Victoria. So the rule period of Queen Victoria is called Victorian era. She ruled from 1837 to 1901. Here we are examining the prose writings during this particular period. You can see the image of Queen Victoria who ruled England for a very long time, and the period is called Victorian period. Victorian era was famous for its essays of social criticism. The Romantic period was famous for personal essays, personal writings, but Victorian era was famous for essays on social criticism, criticizing the society. So, some of the important essay writers of the era were Thomas Carlyle, John Ruskin, Thomas Babington Macaulay, Walter Pater, R.L. Stevenson, Matthew Arnold, and others. And let us examine each one separately. Thomas Carlyle. This is Thomas Carlyle. Carlyle's writings. What are the peculiar features of Carlyle's writing? Carlyle's writings were characterized by his criticism of criticism of Victorian society. We have seen that Victorian prose was of social criticism. Carlyle criticized Victorian society through his writings. The famous Victorian novelist George Eliot. George Eliot is a woman novelist. George Eliot observes, "There is hardly a superior or active mind of this generation that has not been modified by Carlyle's writing," meaning Carlyle's criticism could correct anyone. So his important works are here: Life of Schiller, 1825, Sartor Resartus, 1833, French Revolution, 1837, which is a history book. Oliver Cromwell's Letters and Speeches is also a history book. And another book, another essay, a collection of essay um, on hero worship and the heroic in history. This book tells about Carlyle's strong belief in heroes and hero worship. He was a person who believed in hero worship, and this particular collection of essay tells about his ideas on that. John Ruskin. John Ruskin was an advocate of socialism in social and economic issues. He was very much interested in painting. One of his favorite painters were Turner. He wrote a book called Modern Painters in 1843. In this book, he supported the paintings of Turner. The book had 5 volumes. The last volume was published in 1860. So John Ruskin is a writer who had influenced Gandhi during his Gandhi in formulating his principles. So some of his famous works were The Seven Lamps of Architecture, 1849, The Stones of Venice, 1851 to 53, The Two Paths, 1859, Unto the Last. This is the particular work that influenced Gandhi. Unto the Last. Then Munira Pulveris, 1862 to 63, Sesame and Lilies, 1865, then The Crown of Wild Olive, 1866. Another writer of mention of this era was Thomas Babington Macaulay. Macaulay's Mm, Macaulay's essays are said to have popularized a taste for literature. His writings exhibited practicalism and positivism. He wrote for some of the famous magazines of the era, for example, the Edinburgh Review. He wrote about literature and history. A famous writing by Macaulay is The History of England from the Accession of James II, 1848, an innovative history book which tells about the history of England from 1685 to 1702. Imaginary Portraits, 1887. Then Appreciations, 1889, are some other works by Macaulay. R.L. Stevenson. R.L. Stevenson is a very famous novelist as well. He had written a very popular book called Treasure Island, which is very popular with the children. You might have read it, some of you. His collection of essays are mm, An Inland Voyage, 1878, Travels with a Donkey in the Cevennes, 1897, Virginibus Puerisque, 1881. And now coming to Matthew Arnold. Matthew Arnold was a poet, critic, and essayist. His essays deal with the topic life and literature, the relationship between life and literature. Essays in Criticism is a very famous work. Was published in 1865 and reissued in 1889, is an important work. According to him, the function of criticism is to learn and propagate the best that is known and thought in the world, and thus to establish a current of fresh and true ideas. The meaning of this quotation is that the purpose of criticism is to study and spread, popularize the best human endeavor, the human work, to bring out the fresh and true ideas. So that is a function of criticism, according to uh, Matthew Arnold. The first essay in the collection, The Study of Poetry, introduces his famous touchstone method, a method he proposed to evaluate poetry. He observes that religion should be replaced with poetry. Another important work, Culture and Anarchy, uh, in which he tries to analyze culture and anarchy. What is anarchy? Anarchy is a state of a society being without authorities or governing body, which may often result in disorder. So he is trying to analyze culture and anarchy. In this book, he classifies English society into three. One is barbarians, meaning uncivilized people; Philistines, a person who is indifferent to culture and arts; populace, common public. So, this is how he divides English society into three. And two other important works by Matthew Arnold are Literature and Dogma, 1873, Last Essays on Church and Religion, 1877, and some other important writers of the not not so important, lesser known writers compared to these writers, were Henry Thomas Buckle, Edward Augustus Freeman, James Anthony Froude, Samuel Rawdon Gardner, William Lecky, John Richard Green, Thomas Addington Simons, etc. So by this we come to the end of Victorian prose writers, and uh, in the next class we will move on to essays, various types of essays, and we will conclude Introduction to Prose by then. Thank you.